Hello, you all. Thank you for watching. I'm gonna talk you a little bit about the initial causes of the problem to develop a knowledge and understanding of this problem. So, first of all, we need to understand that the rise of social demands through the so-called EZLN platform were a clear consequence of the official narrative elaborated from the government after the Mexican Revolution. So the so-called Mexicanidad, developed by intellectuals such as Jose Vasconcelos and others, intended to homogenize the population through the process known as mestizaje, and by conceptualizing ideas like la raza cósmica, which means the cosmic race. And it therefore, at numerous times, the Mexican government failed to address the demands of groups that did not fit into that stereotype, that sort of national identity, like many indigenous groups didn't. And it was precisely because they did not recognize the counterpart as a legitimate, capable community with their own goals, their own interests, and therefore the actors' positions that were developed and presented at the previous debate with my classmates could be described as following. First of all, we have the Mexican government, which I represented during that simulation, whose main perceived interest was to avoid a high intensity conflict, as well as minimizing a negative backlash from the media, public opinion, and the international community, because we have to keep in mind that it was a process of kind of political openness, but most importantly, economic openness, with the NAFTA that had just came into effect the very same day that the EZLN raised. And therefore it has shown a certain degree of openness to the issue of rethinking national identity, including multiculturalism as a main characteristic of the country, as well as condemning any kinds of discrimination, including those motivated by racial and ethnic factors, in the Mexican Constitution in Article number 1. Therefore, the Ejército Zapatista de Liberación Nacional, in Zaptis Liberation Army, had the main goal of achieving the recognition of indigenous groups as political actors, delegitimizing the homogeneous Mexican identity that I've told you about before, as well as guaranteeing a certain autonomy for indigenous communities regarding their own socio-political structures and procedures. And therefore, just to put a smaller perspective regarding the international institution that we decided to include in the debate, which was the United Nations, its main function, its main goal was obviously to monitor a full respect and protection of human rights throughout the negotiations, as well as to provide technical guidelines to carry out an intercultural dialogue and negotiations. They have their own handbook on intercultural dialogue, as we have studied in this class. And ultimately, the proposal that we actually agreed upon during the debate was to restore dialogue in order to address the perceived failures of the previous agreements of the public policy implementation, but also to visibilize new challenges. And the important thing here is not only to restore the dialogue itself, but to include to change the procedures on that within which these dialogues are carried out. Like I believe, and many scholars believe, that the new procedure for these dialogues should follow the new democratic practices adopted in the last 2 decades, with all this political openness, including public access to documents, guidelines for periodic evaluation of the progress made in the agreements previously agreed, as well as a free media coverage by that is by all means protected by the Mexican state, as well as citizen participation during the negotiations. We have all these mechanisms of citizen participation. We have referendums. We have our main electoral body is made up by citizens. So I think that it's a very important element to include in this renewed process of dialogue, and it's a way to visualize these causes more strongly, as well as the new challenges and the results and the progress made according to the previous resolutions. That's all for me. Thanks so much.